Hey folks, it's Sonia from 2x2 Lagotto and Kennel, coming to you today from our car. We're driving down the road. Actually, I'm not driving. Somebody else is driving. But I wanted to talk to you about some of the most important things you need to know about the Lagotto, about the breed. Actually, let's call this the top 5 things about the Lagotto. The first is they're an Italian breed, a water breed, so you probably hear them referred to as the Italian water dog or the Italian truffle dog, but what came first was the water. They were from the Romagna region. I've seen things as early as the 1200s, the 1400s. There's pictorial evidence of them as early as that. So maybe they existed before that, but they were used back then as hunting dogs. They would hunt the marshy regions. Hunters used them for bird dogging, flushing out birds, retrieving birds, for sport, for game. And then the marsh is drained, which means that the topography kind of changed a little bit in the region. Weather pattern changed a little, so there's not any marshy regions anymore in that area. Well, the breed almost went extinct, and there was a resurgence of the breed, about 50 years ago when it was discovered they could hunt truffles. Truffles, that's my daughter's hand in the background. Truffles, as you know, the very expensive mushroom, usually hunted by pigs, except pigs eat the truffles. The dogs don't eat the truffles, but they can smell where they're at, they can dig them up, and so truffle hunters began breeding them, using them for hunting truffles. You've probably seen on TV and in magazines information about that. There was a special, I think it was on 60 Minutes or 2020, I don't remember, about this breed of dog that has replaced the pig for truffle hunting. So they are an ancient breed, and that means that they're also a precursor breed to a lot of our other breeds. So if it's got a curly coat or it retrieves, it came from, at one point, the Lagotto. Alright, so that's number 1. Number 2, let's talk about their coat. I think this is a very fun thing about their coat. They definitely have a waterproof coat. It's curly, it's got a soft undercoat. It can mat or felt. It's kind of like a felting underneath, if you've ever experienced anything that's been felted. If it's not groomed properly, it can felt. The curls are nice and tight. You would think as they get older that it would become coarse, but it remains soft. Not soft like smooth, but soft texture. So that's a fun thing, that their coat, they come in several colors. White with orange patches, orange with white patches, brown with white patches or roan patches, roan with brown patches, and brown and white, or white and brown. It just depends on the most dominant color as to what we refer to them as, white and brown or brown and white. They do not come in black. I get that a lot. People look at puppy pictures and they say that they want a black one or a white and black one, and the black is actually a disqualification in the breed. But what you're seeing is that really dark chocolate. It picks up on camera as black. It looks black, but it's not. The fun thing about their coat too is that they're hypoallergenic, but they do, like I said, require grooming, usually every 4 to 8 weeks, depending on what kind of coat you want them to maintain, what you want them, what you're doing with them. If they're companion animals, there's my daughter in the back, Selah. So I teach my puppy clients all about that, and I'm happy to answer other questions about that. Number 3, another fun thing about the Lagotto is their personality. They are a fun-loving dog. They're a family dog. They're very loyal. They're affectionate. They're active. They do require mental stimulation and some exercise. They're not a border collie. They're not a Belgian Malinois. But they're not a little purse dog either. No offense to purse dog owners. They can be active and keep up with the family at the beach or at the lake or out in the backyard or at the dog park, and then come in and hang out. They've got an innate off button kind of built in. We're Aussie breeders, Australian Shepherd breeders. That was our first breed many, many years ago. I don't breed them so often anymore because I think I'm just getting too old for that. Their energy demands. I did breed into, after almost 30 years of breeding the Aussie, an off switch. But they require lots of exercise and mental stimulation. Mental stimulation refers to things that will kind of give the dog a job. So we teach people who have companion puppies, being a companion animal is a job. Being a family pet is a job. And we teach you some things, some retrieving games, frisbee, place training, those kind of things are fun to teach a dog. So that they remain mentally stimulated. And it's not an excessive need, it's not a huge demand. So I don't want anyone to think that they should be precluded from owning a Lagotto. But their personality is sweet and endearing. They have very engaging eyes, very soulful eyes, which we love about our breed. Number 4, scent, their scent ability, their tracking ability. A lot of people call me and ask me, are these dogs diggers? Well, they can dig like any dog. However, they have discovered through using their scent, their scent ability, their smell ability, that they can find things underground which they then have to dig. They can't go get a shovel. Although if they're with someone who is correctly trained in truffle hunting, they will have a trowel or a small shovel or a spade or a rake, something like that, to help the dog. So they're smelling things and then using digging as a tool to recover whatever it is they've smelled. Do I think there's a digging problem in the breed? No. Do I think there's a boredom problem with owners? Yes. And that's across the board. If you let your dog get bored by sticking him in the backyard or not giving them any mental stimulation, they'll dig. Now, we have litters of puppies that there'll be puppies in the litter that you see them already. They're digging in their litter box, their whelping box, or their weaning pen. Right out of the gate, they're digging. Those puppies stay with us for truffle hunting purposes, or they go into a truffle hunting home. We don't place those puppies in companion homes. Now, all our dogs are companion animals, so whether you have a dog that you want to show or do agility with or do truffle hunting with or obedience or rally or scent tracking, they're first and foremost, they are companion animals. So I want to clarify that. But dogs then have a secondary job that they are bred for or built for. So people ask me, like I said, about digging, and I don't have digging issues. My Aussies, they dig. They're diggers. My we live on a farm, so I have livestock guardian dogs, not to be confused with the herding dogs, which is what Aussies do. They move and round up stock. Our livestock guardian dogs are massive dogs that are bred to protect our stock, our goats and our sheep and our cattle and chickens. And these are 150-pound Anatolian shepherds. They will dig a hole the size of their 150-pound body that requires a tractor to fill in the hole. And so I get a little amused. There's been a little bit of a disservice done to the breed because people have tagged them with this horrible digging problem, and I am just not seeing it. I'm not filling in holes where the dogs play in their doggy play area. I mean, occasionally, one of my imports, they'll get a wild hair and want to dig, but other than that, I just don't. Number 5, moving on, the top 5 things about Lagotto. Number 5 is that they are hardy and disease-free. So there are several things that plague the Lagotto, and when I say plague, I mean it could be an issue if we didn't have testing, or if someone were disreputable and chose not to do this testing. The first thing is junior epilepsy, benign familial junior epilepsy, sometimes called BFJE or JE. That is, as the name sounds, an epilepsy which develops in the younger ages. It comes on around 5 weeks and is usually gone by 16 or 20 weeks. So it presents with ataxia, which is a kind of a drunken, wobbly gait. It can present with stiffening. It can present with seizures, epileptic seizures of varying degrees. And the best thing to do for this is simply test all of your breeding animals so you're not producing dogs with junior epilepsy. There are normal, carrier, and affected dogs. So normal is a plus, carrier is a plus-minus, and affected, sorry, I think I got that wrong. Normal is negative, carrier is positive, and affected is positive or plus. So if you bred a carrier to a carrier, if you recall your punted square in high school biology or college biology, or you could even look it up online, you would see that every breeding pair, humans, rabbits, monkeys, dogs, elephants, they all each, the sire and the dam, contribute to the DNA of its offspring. One copy from each parent goes to make that new individual. So with the junior epilepsy, if you have 2 carriers, meaning a positive, negative, bred to a positive, negative, you have 25% chance of having an affected puppy. Well, reputable breeders don't take that chance, and they only breed carriers to negative dogs or normal dogs, and they only breed normal to normal. Now, in a perfect world, all the dogs in a breeding program would be normal, or negative. However, because this is a rare breed, and because we have testing tools set up to be able to test this, we know that if we test them and we breed them responsibly, we're not going to produce junior epilepsy. The only dogs that can ever have junior epilepsy are the dogs that are affected, the positive dogs. We test all our breeding animals, we test all our puppies, so we know the status of them before they leave to go to their new homes. Our kennel was the kennel responsible for setting up the testing in North America. We used to, 6 or 7 years ago, have to send them to Europe for testing, and I decided, hey, this is America, we can do the testing here. So I interviewed several labs, developed a great rapport with the folks at Optogen Their clinical director helped me get that set up with their company. We had tested individuals, so we had baseline knowledge of what all of our dogs were, and then we retested them, and of course they corresponded with the lab over in Finland to get other baseline testing, and we set up the test here in America. Since then, some other people set up the coat gene, which is a genetic test that tests if the Lagotto are born with a straight coat or a curly coat. All of ours are curly coated, so we don't have the straight gene. Another issue in the Lagotto is another neurological disorder called LSD, lysosomal storage disorder, and there's a test for that as well. Our whole kennel is negative for that. There's a couple other issues. There's a bladder/kidney issue that there's some testing for. There is also CA, which there is no test for. I'm sure that there are individuals who are working on that. I think UC Davis is working on that. I haven't checked into that recently, but our kennel is not experiencing any of those issues. There's one other neurological disease that there is testing for, kind of related to the lysosomal storage disorder. And again, our kennel is negative for all of those things. Something that doesn't really plague our lines, but is in the breed, is some hip dysplasia. Things that can be done to prevent hip dysplasia are good nutrition, buying from a reputable breeder who has a solid contract and a track record of being there long term, to be able to support you if you end up with a puppy that has hip dysplasia. A little bit about the testing that is done for hip dysplasia. One is pin hip, which takes clinical measurements of different parts of the hip, and it's a little bit more of a clinical approach, not so subjective. OFA, which is the Orthopedic Foundation of America, there's both of these tests are X-rays that are done under anesthesia. And that's a little bit more subjective because people are deciding or determining what they think they see in each particular X-ray view. So each person would subjectively view that and maybe see something different. So we use both. And to be quite honest, I think it's kind of a roll of the dice. You know, you look at patterns over many years in pedigrees, and that's what we did. We studied pedigrees for a long time before we got our first dogs, our first Lagotto. And the thing is, it's a polygenetic trait, meaning there are so many things that contribute to it. You know, environment, exercise patterns, growth patterns, nutrition. So they're saying now that 70-75% of hip dysplasia is environmental. So when I'm taking a breeding animal in to have it evaluated by my veterinarian, I'm paying him for his opinion, his subjective opinion about whether or not he thinks that that individual may or may not develop hip dysplasia. So you'll hear people say, oh, my dog's hips didn't pass, or my dog's dysplastic. Well, if you're doing OFA and pin hip and it comes back as dysplasia, it doesn't mean that the dog has dysplasia. It means that, well, there could be some arthritic changes on that, but 9 times out of 10, that means that there's a predisposition for it, that they haven't developed it yet. So what you have is a medical opinion about whether or not that dog may or may not develop it, and if it's genetic changes, or if it's a genetic issue. So this is why it's so very important to work with a breeder that you trust, who utilizes a contract that they stand behind and have a long-standing history of standing behind it. Having said all that, hip dysplasia could be an issue in the future for the breed if we're a little haphazard about breeding. So you always want to breed up, meaning if you've got a dog that has hips that passed on the lower end of the standard, then you want to breed to a dog with hips that passed on the higher end of the standard. So that's my hip spiel. Another thing that we're testing for are eyes. Ophthalmologists, veterinary ophthalmologists can check for eye disorders that are they're pretty rare actually in the breed. But we're testing for those things too, and all of our eyes always come back normal with no notations, and that's important. You want a breeder who is breeding individuals who are free from genetic issues, not just having a normal eye exam, because there can be normal eye exams, but then some notes, well, I saw various other things on the eye exam, and that again is done by a veterinary ophthalmologist. So overall, the dogs have a long life. They can live 12 to 15 years, and they have relatively few, if any, health issues. No significant cancers, no other significant issues. So that was one of the other reasons why we chose the breed, is because we wanted a breed of dog that lived a long time and had few, if any, health issues. So that's my top 5 things about the Lagotto. I hope you've enjoyed this segment. Peace out.